Am I the asshole for telling my husband to shut up after he told my son to man up? English is not my first language, so I apologize for any grammar or spelling mistakes. And #X200B. Yesterday night, my husband asked my son to go to the supermarket and buy us a pack of cigarettes. We smoke in the balcony as it just finished. My son told him that he doesn't like going out at night alone because last time he got catcalled by some drunk women on the street and it made him feel very uncomfortable. My husband laughed and told him to man up and even suggested him to spend the night with them if they are attractive. This is where I lost it and told him that if he wants to smoke he should go to the store himself, and he ended up going. And #X200B. When he came back he told me that it's because of me that my son started acting feminine, and I'm doing a terrible job in raising him. Am I the asshole here? No, you're not. Catcalling is sexual harassment. Anyone has the right to feel uncomfortable from it. Not the asshole. Your husband is behaving terribly. Do not allow him to treat your son this way. Stand up for your child and tell your husband that your son is allowed to feel uncomfortable and he doesn't have to go buy y'all cigarettes at night. TBH, if y'all want to smoke at night the planning needs to be better, i.e. y'all, specifically your husband, since he's being such a brat, needs to purchase more during the day and keep the stockpile in a drawer. Not the asshole. Feeling uncomfortable for being catcalled is not feminine. If someone feels uncomfortable by it, then it's because they don't want the attention. Which is totally acceptable. And it's kinda gross he's telling his son to have sex with strange women. You've done nothing wrong in this instance. Not the asshole. Please continue what you're doing and keep standing up for your son. Not the asshole. Throw the whole husband away with that toxic attitude. 110% not the asshole. This is where toxic masculinity starts. Please tell your husband they cannot speak to your child this way, and harassment like catcalling is absolutely not okay. No, you're not the asshole. I don't really understand your husband here. He asked your son to go to the store to get cigarettes. Your son refuses because he tells you he feels uncomfortable being accosted by drunk women. Your husband insults your son, suggesting the reason he doesn't want to go is because he is too feminine. But originally your husband didn't want to go either. You stand up to your husband in support of your son. Your husband leaves, and when he returns he blames you for his son's supposed femininity. It seems like he is mad he had to get off his ass and get cigarettes by himself. What sort of parent makes fun of their child for something they are afraid of? Not the asshole. Your husband sounds like a treat if he thinks it's wrong for a man to behave feminine, especially if he considers feeling bad about catcalling a weakness. Not the asshole. Toxic masculinity at its finest. You did a good job. Just because they're boys, they don't need to be held at a different standard compared to girls. Not the asshole, but your husband is an asshole in so many ways. First, they're his cigarettes. If he wants them so bad, he can get off his butt and go buy them himself instead of shirking it off on your son. Second, harassment is harassment and is not dependent on gender. A woman can be a sexual predator just as easily as a man can. Third, what the hell was that advice to your son about sleeping with her? Does he not realize that someone that's drunk is not in a state to consciously, or even legally unless I'm mistaken, consent? That's a very good way to get his son a rape charge. What if he had gone with her and she turned around and filed a police report because your son took advantage of her in a vulnerable state? Keep standing up for your son and fighting your husband's attempts to force his toxic masculinity on him. Not the asshole. Make sure your son knows that how your husband behaves is not how a real man behaves. Not the asshole. Your husband sounds like a bully and possibly a homophobe. He wants to make your son do things for him and then makes fun of him when he says why he doesn't want to do it and tells him he isn't a man. Then when he gets told off by his wife for being a bully and has to go to the store for his own cigarettes, he made himself angry and decided to try and make you feel like a bad mother by acting like there's something wrong with your son. NTA. And #X200B. I've started to notice men are always told to man up and suck it up, etc. You did the right thing. Men should be able to express their emotions, which makes them uncomfortable, limits, and so on without being told to man up. There is nothing wrong with that you are doing. If anything, you should be proud of him for him telling you how he felt. Keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing it right. Thank you. Not the asshole. Your husband is going to cause some serious esteem issues. If you can't get your husband to stop, I'd verbally confront your husband, in front of your son every time. Hopefully that will negate what your husband says and instill the confidence to stand up to a bully. Not the asshole. Harassment is harassment, doesn't matter who the perp or the recipient is. Women can be guilty of it, and men can feel bothered by unwanted sexual attention. Also, your husband is actually advocating for your son to have sex with drunk women, who may not be in a state to fully and safely consent. Gross. Not the asshole. Tell your husband to save his macho bullshit for his friends at work. Not the asshole. Your husband was being a jerk. Not the asshole. Your husband is an ass. Not the asshole, and thank God your son has you. Tell your husband that being a lazy bum isn't very manly either. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Thank you for standing up for your son. WTF. Not the asshole, at all. But your husband is. Not the asshole. Depending on the age of your son, your husband, whose method is awful, has a point in that we all have to develop a tolerance for that sort of shit if we're ever going to leave our house. But your husband handled it like a callous clod. Curious how old your boy is, by the way. NTA Google.com/amp/ny-times.com/2019/11/27/chicago-killed-catcall.amp.html. NTA semi-related sidepoint. Most feminine men are in fact wonderful ppl. Not the asshole. Good on you for defending your son. NTA. Not the asshole. What a terrible example he is setting for his child. He is allowed to feel uncomfortable and he is allowed to choose his own sexual encounters on his time. I never understood why parents encourage their sons to have sex with any girl they see, especially without teaching them how to do it safely. They're encouraging STDs, underage pregnancies, and potentially forced child support, all because they want their kid to be a man. My boyfriend has been made fun of in the past, but I can tell you something, Mum. He is the best I've ever had because he is in touch with his emotions and can relate to how I feel more than any other man I've ever met. You're raising your son wonderfully, and it's not bad for him to have emotions and feelings. It makes him human. Be happy that your son is not like your husband, and I'm sorry that your husband can't understand that he's the real asshole. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Your husband needs some talking to. Not the asshole. I would suggest your husband think about what he would say if the sexes were reversed. Although some people may enjoy being catcalled, your son has every right to feel uncomfortable with it. I would suggest to him that he shouldn't let that stop him from going out at night and having fun, though. Life is too short. Not the asshole. Ask your husband, what is wrong with acting feminine? Not the asshole. Period. Everyone has the right to feel safe and comfortable. Sexual harassment can occur to anyone. Your husband is 100% ta. Meeting you child's needs makes you a good mother. You are not the asshole. Not the asshole. Your husband seems to be making all the parenting mistakes in the book. This is what we mean when we mention toxic masculinity. Question: how old is you son? Not the asshole. Major red flag from your husband if he thinks that him getting cigarettes is more important than your child's mental and physical safety. If he's the type of dad that cannot be accepting of his child's emotions and way of being, implying that him being more feminine and whatnot is bad, and accusing you of not raising him properly, then he doesn't deserve to be a father to this wonderful child and is a poor excuse of a husband. I know that us women tend to find excuses to our partner's poor behaviors, but this is definitely not okay, no matter how, actually nice, you might believe he is. Good for you for standing for yourself. Not the asshole, and by that, I mean that dude is a real awe. I still can't be honest with myself emotionally because I was told to man up. No need for posting here, clear cut. Not the asshole. Husband sounds like a real awesome guy. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You are a great parent. Most parents, including mine, don't ever consider their son's feelings and dismiss it by saying, man up, keep up the good work, you seem like a good person. Not the asshole. If he wants to smoke, he should go and get his smokes. Your son voiced a concern and a boundary that was being crossed and made him feel unsafe. I wouldn't call this feminine, I would say that this is basic human safety. Your husband needs a wake-up call. Nah. I'm sorry your son had to be catcalled. I see where you are coming from with your concern, but I am siding with your husband here. Your son is a young man. He has to be able to go outside at night, despite the uncomfortable situation he was being put into. There is nothing wrong with telling a young man to man up. Also, as a former lazy teenager, I highly doubt your son gives a fuck about being catcalled by some drunk women. I think he just doesn't want to run your errands for you, and rightfully so. You and your husband are both adults, you can walk to the store yourself. Not the asshole. Sending your kid out at night to get you a pack of smokes conjures an image of the kind of man your husband is, and literally every other thing he says and does is right on brand. Not the asshole. I'm not a big fan of your husband's opinions here. Rather than just protecting your son, perhaps suggest to him ways of handling situations like this himself though. If and when you're not there, he needs to know he can manage to fend off unwanted attention as gracefully as possible without turning into an a-hole because he hasn't figured out some smooth and gentle dismissals. Not the asshole. Your son shouldn't have to do anything he isn't comfortable doing. 1. Disliking being catwalked is not feminine. Guys can also feel uncomfortable with unsolicited attention. It's a dangerous myth that all guys are willing to have sex with every woman who tries with them. 2. Even if your son was feminine, there would be nothing wrong with that. And, of course, it wouldn't be because of you. 3. Telling a sexist, homophobic and rude person to shut up is not being an Not the asshole.